I spent another quiet Sunday morning on our front porch, a cup of coffee growing cold beside me while Duke sprawled at my feet. The wooden boards creaked beneath my rocking chair, a sound that had become as familiar as breathing over the past 5 years. Through the window, I caught glimpses of Celeste pacing our living room, phone pressed to her ear, her voice rising and falling in that practiced lawyer tone she'd perfected. The autumn air carried a hint of wood smoke from the neighbor's chimney. I reached down to scratch behind Duke's ears, earning a contented sigh from him. These mornings used to be our time, Celeste and me, sharing sections of the newspaper, planning our week, or just sitting in comfortable silence. Now, she spent most weekends catching up on casework. Duke's head suddenly perked up as Celeste stepped onto the porch, still dressed in her silk pajamas, but already typing furiously on her phone. Without looking up, she settled into the chair next to mine. The distance between us felt wider than the few feet of weathered wood. "Beautiful morning," I offered, testing the waters. She hummed in response, fingers never pausing their dance across the screen. The morning light caught the diamond on her left hand, the one I'd saved 6 months of teaching salary to buy. Back then, she'd said it was perfect because it was from me. Now she wore it like an afterthought. Duke got up and padded over to her, nudging her hand with his nose. She absently patted his head, but her eyes remained fixed on her work. Even our usually persistent pup gave up after a few attempts, returning to curl up by my feet with a small whine. I thought about the folder of adoption agencies' pamphlets gathering dust in my desk drawer, our someday that kept getting pushed further away. Last time I'd brought it up, Celeste had talked about making partner first, about timing and career trajectories, reasonable arguments that felt like gentle deflections. The coffee had gone completely cold now. Inside, the grandfather clock, a wedding gift from her parents, chimed 9 times. Celeste stood abruptly, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her pajamas. I should get ready. The Parker brief needs review before tomorrow's meeting. I watched her disappear inside, remembering weekends when that clock would chime noon before we even thought about leaving our porch sanctuary. Duke's tail thumped against the floorboards, a steady rhythm that matched the ache building in my chest. The morning paper lay untouched on the small table between our chairs, still neatly folded the way I'd placed it earlier. Another small tradition fading away, like paint peeling slowly from a beloved old house. I couldn't shake the feeling something was off with Celeste lately. The late nights at the office, missed dinners, constant phone calls, they'd become our new normal. But tonight, with the snow piling up outside and temperatures dropping below freezing, I needed to know she was safe. The wipers fought against the heavy snowfall as I navigated the slick roads to her firm. I'd packed her favorite, butternut squash soup and fresh sourdough from that little bakery she loves, the one where we used to spend Sunday mornings. The parking lot was nearly empty when I pulled in, just a few cars scattered under the yellow glow of the street lamps. Through the curtain of snow, I spotted Celeste's silver BMW still parked in her usual spot. At least I knew she was still here. Then I saw them, Celeste and some guy I'd never seen before, walking too close under a black umbrella. His hand rested on her lower back like he'd done it 1,000 times before. She threw her head back, laughing at something he'd said, that genuine, uninhibited laugh I hadn't heard in months. My stomach dropped. The soup container slipped from my grip, hitting the floor mat with a dull thud. This wasn't a colleague being polite. This was something else. "Celeste," my voice came out sharper than intended, cutting through the quiet of the falling snow. She stopped dead in her tracks. Even from here I could see the color drain from her face as she turned toward my car. The man's hand stayed firmly on her waist, almost possessive. Something primal stirred in my chest as I locked eyes with him, tall, wearing what looked like $1,000 suit. He held my gaze for a moment, before finally dropping his hand and taking a step back. The drive home feels endless. Each snowflake hitting the windshield echoes like a thunderclap in the deafening silence between us. My hands grip the steering wheel until my knuckles turn white, but I barely feel it. The soup I brought her sits forgotten in the back seat, probably cold now. Just like everything else. How long? The words come out softer than I expected, barely above a whisper. Part of me doesn't want to hear the answer. Celeste shifts in her seat, her designer coat rustling against the leather. Nash, please, it's not what you think. Marcus is just... Marcus! The name tastes bitter on my tongue. Now her late nights and missed dinners have a name. He's just a friend from work, a colleague. We haven't done anything. Her voice cracks on the last word, betraying what she won't admit. I keep my eyes fixed on the road ahead, watching the snow swirl in the headlights. The same snow that showed me the truth, her laugh echoing across that parking lot, his hand on her waist, the way they jumped apart when they saw me. Some things you can't unsee. You've already made your choice. The words hang between us like frost. I pull into our driveway, kill the engine, and step out into the cold. Duke's excited barking greets me from inside, but even that familiar comfort feels hollow now. The next few days pass in a blur of silent meals and avoided glances. Celeste tries to talk several times, but I can't bring myself to respond beyond necessary pleasantries. What's left to say? The woman who used to curl up next to me on Sunday mornings with coffee and the paper now feels like a stranger in our home. I spend more time in my classroom after school, grading papers until the janitor's vacuum reminds me it's time to leave. When I am home, I take Duke on longer walks, letting the winter air numb everything except the leash in my hand and the rhythm of our footsteps in the snow. The warmth has drained from our house, the home we built together over 5 years of shared dreams and quiet moments. Now it's just walls and furniture and the echo of what used to be. I sit at the kitchen table staring at my half-empty coffee mug while Duke rests his head on my lap. The morning sun streams through the windows, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. Celeste moves around upstairs, getting ready for another day at the office. My mind keeps drifting to Marcus, but something doesn't add up. The way she acted that night in the parking lot. The whispered phone calls, the late meetings. They all point to something deeper, more calculated than a chance encounter. The sound of heels clicking on hardwood draws my attention. Celeste appears in a fitted black dress, her makeup perfect as always. She pauses in the doorway, hesitating before grabbing her travel mug. A text notification lights up her phone screen on the counter. I catch a glimpse of the name Wilder Kane. My chest tightens. Not Marcus. Wilder. The pieces start falling into place. I watch her over the next few days. The way she lights up when her phone buzzes. How she tilts her head back, laughing at messages. The quick exits. The vague explanations about client dinners and deadline crunches. Each observation adds weight to my suspicions. One evening, I drive past her office building at 8 p.m. Her car sits alone in the lot, but through the lobby windows I spot her walking out with a tall man in an expensive suit. He places his hand on the small of her back, leading her to his sports car. The intimacy of the gesture tells me everything I need to know. Celeste comes home later, smelling of wine and wearing guilt like perfume. She slips into bed without a word, probably thinking I'm asleep. I lie still, counting her breaths until they even out. The next week follows the same pattern. Late nights, hidden smiles, distant touches. I say nothing, do nothing, just watch and wait. Part of me wants to confront her, demand answers, but a deeper instinct tells me to be patient. Friday night, Celeste takes an unusually long shower. Her phone sits on the nightstand, screen dark and tempting. Then it lights up, a message from Wilder. The words hit like a physical blow. Can't stop thinking about this weekend. Let me know if you can sneak away again. I don't touch the phone. Don't need to see more. The truth I've suspected settles heavy in my gut as I listen to the shower running. When Celeste finally slides into bed, I keep my breathing steady, pretending to sleep while my mind races with plans. She chose Wilder. Now I'll choose how this ends. I stared at the folder on my desk, thick with documents and photos. 2 weeks of meticulous research had painted quite the picture of Wilder Kane. My hands clenched as I flipped through the private investigator's report. The PI had delivered beyond expectations. Wilder's past read like a sleazy novel. 3 workplace affairs in the last 5 years, all with married women. Each ended the same way. The women left their husbands only for Wilder to move on within months. Classic pattern. I spread the surveillance photos across my desk. Celeste and Wilder at expensive restaurants, his hand on the small of her back, them leaving his apartment building at dawn, her car in his parking spot overnight. Each image burned, but I forced myself to study them, to let the anger fuel me. The financial records were particularly interesting. The PI had uncovered suspicious transactions, large sums moving between accounts just before major business deals. Nothing concrete enough for legal action, but enough to raise serious questions about Wilder's ethics. His former business partners had plenty to say about his methods once someone started asking the right questions. My lawyer contact helped me access public records of his previous divorces, 2 of them. Both ex-wives had signed ironclad NDAs, but money talks. One agreed to meet with my PI. Her story matched the others. Wilder's charm, the whirlwind affair, then the swift discard, once she'd left everything behind for him. I created a detailed timeline in my notebook. Dates, locations, patterns of behavior. The story it told was crystal clear. Wilder was a predator who targeted successful married women, used them, and moved on to the next conquest. And Celeste had fallen right into his trap. The PI's latest report landed on my desk that morning. Photos of Wilder having lunch with a young associate from another firm, his body language unmistakable. Even while pursuing Celeste, he was already laying groundwork for his next target. I organized everything methodically: financial records, witness statements, photographs, timeline. Each piece of evidence carefully labeled and annotated. This wasn't just about exposing their affair anymore. This was about revealing the true Wilder Kane, the man behind the smooth facade. My hand shook slightly as I closed the dossier. Duke padded over and rested his head on my knee, sensing my distress. I scratched behind his ears, finding comfort in his steady presence. The weight of what I'd discovered settled heavily in my chest. Celeste thought she was special, different from the others. She had no idea she was just another chapter in Wilder's practiced routine. The evidence was overwhelming, not just of their affair, but of the calculated nature of Wilder's approach. How many times had he played this exact game? How many marriages and lives had he destroyed for his own entertainment? I tucked the dossier into my desk drawer and locked it. The time wasn't right yet. I needed a few more pieces, a few more witnesses. When I finally moved, it wouldn't just be about exposing their affair. It would be about showing Celeste exactly who she'd thrown away our marriage for. I waited until Celeste's car disappeared around the corner before letting my mask slip. The practiced neutrality I'd maintained these past weeks dissolved into something harder, colder. Duke whined at my feet, sensing the shift in my mood. "Just a work retreat," I muttered. remembering how easily the lie had fallen from her lips. The private investigator had already confirmed her real destination, Wilder's luxury apartment downtown. Another weekend of deception, perfectly orchestrated by the man who'd made a hobby of destroying marriages. I moved through our house methodically, gathering what I needed. Clothes, important documents, Duke's supplies. The familiar rooms felt different now, tainted by knowledge I couldn't unlearn. Photos of happier times mocked me from the walls. Our wedding day, vacation snapshots, moments when I thought we were building something real. Duke followed me from room to room, his nails clicking against the hardwood floors. I had already arranged for us to stay at my brother's lake house. The solitude would do us both good. In our bedroom, I pulled out my suitcase and began filling it. Each item I packed felt like another brick in the wall between my old life and whatever came next. Duke curled up on my side of the bed, the side that would be empty tonight. The letter took 3 attempts to write. The first 2 drafts were too angry, too raw. The final version was precise, controlled, just like I needed to be. I placed it carefully on her pillow, where she couldn't miss it. Looking around one last time, I saw the ghost of what we'd had. Morning coffees on the porch, lazy Sunday afternoons, plans for a future that would never happen now. But that life was gone, replaced by secret phone calls and weekend retreats. "Come on, boy," I called to Duke, who bounded to my side. "Time to go." I locked the door behind us, leaving my key on the entry table. The house looked the same as always, but everything had changed. As I loaded the car, I thought about Celeste finding my letter, realizing what she'd lost. Part of me ached at the image, but a larger part felt nothing but a cold certainty. The drive away from our neighborhood was quiet except for Duke's soft panting from the back seat. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. There was nothing left to see. Revenge isn't my style, but this wasn't about revenge. This was about justice, about protecting others from becoming Wilder's next victims. After settling into my brother's lake house, I compiled everything I'd gathered into a comprehensive dossier. Photos, financial records, testimonies from his previous conquests. It all painted a clear picture of who Wilder Kane really was. I sent the package to HR first thing Monday morning. Simple, professional, with a cover letter detailing his pattern of workplace misconduct. By Wednesday, the whispers had turned into a roar. My phone buzzed constantly with texts from mutual friends and colleagues sharing updates from inside the firm. Wilder's carefully constructed world crumbled, piece by piece. The photos of him with Celeste in the parking lot, at restaurants, entering hotels, they spoke volumes. But it was the testimonies from other women that sealed his fate. 3 marriages destroyed in the past 5 years, all following the same pattern. The evidence was undeniable. Through my network of friends, I learned about Catherine, Wilder's fiancée. She worked at a competing firm, completely unaware of her true nature. I debated for hours whether to send her the evidence, but in the end, she deserved to know. I mailed her a carefully curated selection of photos and documents, along with a simple note about her future husband. The fallout exceeded even my expectations. Catherine canceled the engagement publicly, posting a scathing message on social media that spread through professional circles like wildfire. Wilder's firm, already embarrassed by the HR investigation, terminated him. His reputation in the corporate world, built on charm and false promises, shattered overnight. Celeste wasn't spared. The affair became common knowledge at the firm, and the professional circle she'd worked so hard to join turned their backs on her. Her colleagues, who once praised her dedication, now avoided eye contact in hallways. Lunch invitations dried up. project teams mysteriously reorganized without her. Through mutual friends, I heard she'd taken to eating lunch alone in her office, door closed. The polished, confident attorney who commanded every room now skulked through the corridors, head down. Partners who'd been grooming her for advancement suddenly found their mentorship calendars full. I took no pleasure in her downfall. Despite everything, seeing her professional life implode didn't bring me satisfaction. But actions have consequences, and Wilder's pattern needed to be exposed before he could move on to his next target. I never imagined starting over would feel this liberating. The gentle rocking of my sailboat, the symphony, has become more comforting than any house ever was. Duke adapted to sea life better than I expected. He's found his favorite spot on deck where he can feel the ocean breeze ruffle his fur. The Marine Research Center offered me a position studying coral reef restoration. It's fulfilling work that keeps my hands busy and my mind focused on something larger than myself. My coworkers don't know my story, and I prefer it that way. Here I'm just the new guy who knows his way around underwater sampling techniques. Each evening, Duke and I walk along the shore. The small coastal town of Cedar Key has embraced us without questions. The locals wave as we pass, and some even leave treats for Duke at the marina. It's a simple life, but it's mine. No more pretending, no more silent dinners waiting for someone who won't show up. I heard through mutual friends that Celeste's once pristine world has crumbled. Her voicemails pile up on my phone. I haven't deleted them, but I haven't listened to them either. Each time her name appears on my screen, I think about how easy it would be to answer, to hear her explanation one more time. Instead, I let the waves wash away those thoughts. The joint savings I used to buy the symphony were meant for the house renovations Celeste always wanted. Now they've given me something far more valuable. Freedom. Some nights, when the stars reflect off the water and Duke snores softly beside me, I realize I haven't thought about her all day. Those are the best nights. Celeste's isolation is her own making. Our old friends text me sometimes, telling me how she sits alone in that big house, how her perfectly curated life has unraveled. Wilder vanished the moment things got complicated, just like all the other times before. I feel no satisfaction in knowing I was right about him, only relief that I'm no longer tangled in their web of lies. The ocean has become my constant companion, more reliable than any vows or promises. Here, among the salt air and seabirds, I've found what was missing in my marriage: peace. I was enjoying a peaceful evening on my boat's deck with some fellow sailors from the marina. We shared stories about challenging weather conditions we'd faced, Duke lounging contentedly at my feet as the setting sun painted the sky in warm oranges and pinks. The familiar smell of salt air and sounds of gentle waves against the hulls created a perfect moment of contentment. A shadow fell across the deck. My laughter died in my throat as I looked up to see Celeste standing at the end of the dock. She wore the designer clothes that used to be her armor, but they hung differently on her frame now. Her presence felt like an intrusion into the peaceful world I'd built. Duke's ears perked up, but he stayed pressed against my leg, sensing my tension. My sailing friends noticed the shift in atmosphere and quietly excused themselves, leaving just the three of us in this unwanted reunion. "What do you hear, Celeste?" The words came out sharper than I intended, but I kept my voice controlled. I didn't stand up to greet her. Her perfectly maintained facade cracked. Tears started streaming down her face, smearing her makeup. "Nash, I made a terrible mistake. I've lost everything. My reputation, my position at the firm." She took a step closer to the boat. "But losing you, that's what hurts the most." "I see what I lost," she sobbed, gripping the railing of my boat. "The life we had, the future we planned, I threw it all away for nothing. Wilder was exactly who you said he was. You were right about everything." I watched her cry, feeling a strange detachment. The woman breaking down before me seemed like a stranger, so different from the confident attorney I'd married, or even the secretive woman she'd become during the affair. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said quietly, keeping my voice steady and final. "But it's not me." Living on my boat had become more than just an escape. It was home. The gentle rocking, the sound of waves lapping against the hull, and Duke's steady presence made each day feel right. I spent my mornings at the Marine Research Center, teaching kids about ocean conservation and helping with various projects. The simplicity of it all brought me peace. One autumn evening, while grading papers at the local coffee shop, I met Isla. She was setting up an art exhibition, her paintings of the coastline capturing the same sense of serenity I'd found on the water. We talked about the ocean, about color and light, about the way life sometimes takes unexpected turns. There was no pressure, no rush, just genuine connection that felt as natural as breathing. Our friendship grew slowly. We'd run into each other at the farmer's market, share coffee after my morning classes, or walk Duke along the beach. Isla had a way of seeing beauty in ordinary moments. She'd stop to sketch a piece of driftwood, or point out how the sunset painted the clouds in shades I'd never noticed before. The message from Celeste came on a Tuesday morning. My phone lit up with her name, something that once would have sent my heart racing. Now, I felt only a calm acceptance as I read her Instagram post. She'd moved back to her hometown, taking up painting again. Her gallery showed canvases filled with bold colors and raw emotion, healing made visible through art. I typed out a simple message: "I hope you're doing well. Thanks for the memories. Take care of yourself." Her reply came quickly: "You too." That evening, Isla and I sat on the deck of my boat watching the stars emerge. Duke dozed at our feet while we shared a bottle of wine. I told her about the message, about feeling the last threads of my old life finally settling into place. "Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is let go," she said, her hand finding mine in the growing darkness. I thought about how different this feeling was, this slow, blooming connection built on mutual understanding and shared moments. No rush, no pressure, just two people walking forward on the same path. Duke nudged my leg, reminding me it was time for his evening walk. As Isla and I strolled along the moonlit beach, I realized that healing doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the quiet moments, in new beginnings that grow naturally from the ashes of what came before. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed the story, remember to like, subscribe, and comment on the video for more stories like this. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. If you have any similar stories to share, leave them in the comments and we'll make sure to bring them to life. Thanks for watching.